Hello everyone, welcome back to the Bouk and Zoobie show on the world famous LIR.com, 92.7 LIR.com, and YouTube. I am John Kalaboukas, the Bouk, with my friend Paul Zubulake. Well, Zoobie, we are live today.
We are live and together, and we're just so excited to do something new. Our great producer had this crazy idea to put the two old men on, and we are doing this show. We will be posting this show, so we will be filming live. And the other most exciting part about this, right, John, is that we are going to have call-ins today.
Yeah, and it's going to be former hosts with varying degrees of expertise, whether it be hockey, basketball, anything and everything that they want to speak about.
Yeah, so we're going to do it kind of like a regular call-in show.
That's right.
And maybe someday we'll actually do a real live show on YouTube.
Yeah.
And we do appreciate everybody checking out the show. So, I don't know, John, as always, since the last time we spoke, now we did do a show last week, and we are talking on St. Patrick's Day.
Yeah.
We must mention that. And we will be posting the show hopefully tomorrow. And as always, I just want to thank everybody for checking it out across all our platforms, YouTube, Spotify. And for people who are listening, guess what? You got to check out the live show on YouTube, and you have to search our show, Bouk, B-O-U-K, and Zoobie, Z-O-O-B-I-E. And of course, our friends at the world famous LIR.com, 92.7 LIR.com. We're always happy to get on their platform, and hopefully people are checking out their internet music.
Yeah. And by the way, we are doing this in New Jersey from Mr. Zubulake's home. And the reason why I'm saying this, I want to say something. So I rarely visit New Jersey. So for those of you people who watch from New Jersey, do you realize that there's other people on the road as you're driving? It is incredible. I've just avoided 2 accidents today for people who I think didn't think that there was anyone else on the road. It's just incredible, the type of turns. I thought we were aggressive drivers in New York, New Jersey. They're out of their minds here. Seriously.
Well, I'll tell you, growing up in New York, you always complained about the Jersey drivers. Us in New Jersey now, we complain about the Pennsylvania drivers. So maybe it's actually interesting. So it's also the timing, I guess, right? And the highways, which one you're going. So you think it was a little, because to compare New Jersey driving, John, to Long Island driving, where you have these like merges on the Northern State Parkway that are about 20 feet, where people are going like 85 and you're trying to merge. So it is kind of hard to believe, right, that somebody's complaining. So, just to show everybody, it's not all about sports on the Bouk and Zoobie show. But I'm glad you brought that up.
Well, there's one other thing. I'm not going to mention the Greek restaurant I went to.
Okay.
But I will probably call this Greek restaurant tomorrow to make them aware that they cannot play the same Greek song for the full hour that someone's eating, because all it was doing was replaying over and over this. I'm like, listen, I love Greek music, but I was hearing the same song for 1 full hour. So maybe, you kind of like mix it up if you're going to have that Greek music there.
Okay.
Anyway, the food was great.
The food was good, luckily, thankfully. John, as always, is always looking for some Greek food, and he partaked in Somerset County, New Jersey, and that's where we are. So, John, as mentioned, we're going to have people call in. We have a few minutes. I was actually thinking that I would get to a little baseball with Bouk right away, because of, ultimately it is a March Madness type of show, but we're going to be talking about everything, as you mentioned. But, John, quickly, before we get some calls, the state of the Mets and, of course, the Yankees, and what's happened over the last week. And, Clay Holmes is actually going to be the starting pitching on opening day. That is official? Is that official?
That is 100% official. Right. Yes, Clay Holmes has had a great great spring training. I've watched almost every single game that he's pitched. His changeup is something to behold. He has really good stuff.
All right.
Can he do it over an entire season? I don't know.
Right.
But as we talked about, Jeff McNeil out a couple of weeks. So Brett Beatty has now been playing second base. And he actually played pretty well. I watched the game yesterday. He actually played pretty well, handled it flawlessly. He has a strong arm to begin with. He's been hitting well. Acuna, they haven't been really using him too much. So I'm betting that Beatty will be your starting second baseman come opening day.
So has he turned the double play in any of the games?
I have not seen that yet.
So that's going to be the real test because he is lanky.
Yes.
You definitely got to be concerned about how he's going to handle that. I have a feeling Lindor might be like looking over and running to the base a lot. Right? Yeah. Well, obviously, if it's going to third, then they have no choice. So he's got to be able to turn that, right? So we'll see.
But, McNeil, if you look at McNeil and Beatty Beatty's a little bit taller, but he's, pretty much the same height.
Okay.
But again, outside of that, Nimmo looks like he's going to start off as a DH.
Okay, because he just can't play the outfield because of injury.
His knee.
Because of his knee.
It's not even the plantar fasciitis he had. Now it's his knee.
So who's
been getting gel injections in his knee.
Wow.
And if you're getting gel injections in your knee, that means that your knee is pretty bad. I mean, usually they give that to old people, that have knee problems. So.
Wow. So that's a big, huge concern. So the outfield is obviously Soto, Siri, and it's going to be Taylor and left. Is
probably
that
Taylor?
Right?
Yeah, probably
that's
Taylor.
What they're going to go with.
Yeah,
wow.
Probably Taylor. And there's one other guy that we has had a really good spring training. I don't know if he's going to make the team. Was Max Kranick. He's again another guy that was full of potential. Was a starting pitcher, but now has found a niche as a relief pitcher, like a middle innings person.
Okay.
I think he may make the team. He hasn't given up a run all spring training.
So how'd they get him?
Off of waivers.
Yeah. There you go. Stearns, has shown that ability to kind of get guys off the scrap heap.
Yeah.
They're going to need that. So we're still crying about Iglesias not coming back. So we're not going to have the oh my God stuff, right? That has been retired after 1 year.
Yeah.
So they're going to have to come up with something different. I mean, ultimately, John, it's about one thing. It's about winning games.
That's right.
And that's what fans care about. The concept of the cultures and all this other stuff, which we'll definitely get to on the football side. So don't worry, folks. We will be talking some football, especially with our guests. We'll be talking NBA, NHL, and, of course, March Madness. And we'll throw out our Final Four. So, quickly, before we get to calls, which I then definitely want to talk about this subject, John, and we were there live for the Big East Championship. You were there pretty much throughout. What a way to end the regular season for the Red Storm. 30-4, regular season Big East, winning the conference tournament and getting a 2 seed. Now, what the NCAA did to St. John's after last year, I should say the selection committee, not the NCAA, the selection group, where they didn't include St. John's and included a team like Virginia, John, last year, who bombed out. Let's remind everybody what happened last year.
Yeah.
Virginia got in from the ACC. Yeah. And then look what happens this year with North Carolina getting in. But ultimately, St. John's, if they advance past the first 2 games, have to go to San Francisco to play, right? And then you had mentioned, which I didn't even know, is that they're scheduled in the first round. Is it Thursday or Friday?
Yeah, it's Thursday night at 9:45.
Which never, ever happens because it's tied to the game in front of it. So traditionally, John, this is, because haven't been watching this tournament as long as I have, is that you're going to see these games starting at 10 o'clock. 10:05. Wait till they put up the start time.
Oh, please.
And then you're going to want to throw something at your TV on the East Coast. So, I mean, it's just, they're starting in Providence. They threw them a bone to get them local, pseudo-local. But just a terrible job by the committee to do that to St. John's. The other part of it is, too, John, their region is pretty tough.
It's very tough.
We'll get to our picks, but the team du jour is the Florida Gators, right? So Florida won 2 national championships back-to-back, back in the 2000s with Billy Donovan as the head coach. But since then, they have done nothing. So, they have a new coach. Todd Golden is like his 3rd year, I believe. So that's like kind of the hot pick, and that's the team in the West, the number 1 seed. And then, of course, because, as some people who watch the show will know, Zoobie follows multiple teams. And he's got his alma mater, Maryland, which I'll tell you this quick story. When I went to school there many years ago, when we were a good basketball program, constantly going to the tournament, I can't tell you, John, how many times they got shipped out west. Because we would want to see if we could get to the games. Incredibly, every year when they were good. Where are they going? They're also going out west, but not only if they advance, they have to play in San Francisco. They're starting in Seattle.
Yeah.
So again, folks, when it comes to this stuff, if you don't think that there's a bias and how this works in college sports, you're not paying attention. So I'll throw out my West Finals, John. So I'm like, I look at this and I'm like, I got to fade Florida because everybody's on Florida, right? So I'm fading them through my 2 of my teams, and I've got St. John's playing Maryland in San Francisco. So that's the angle I took, where Maryland knocks off Florida and they play St. John's. And St. John's wins. So now, I'm hoping for that scenario.
Now I want to ask you.
Yes.
With that scenario, Maryland versus St. John's.
Who do you root for?
Who are you rooting for?
So that is one of those you can't lose games. You can't lose. You can't lose. Now, I used to be a huge Maryland Terrapin fan. I'm not going to lie. They've kind of fallen out of my favor. It was related to Turgeon was the coach. They held on to him forever. I was disgusted. And then just kind of like where the university is and their president, I'm just not into that as much as I used to be. St. John's, we've gone to multiple games this year. Obviously, I actually went there for a year, so I have that connection. Yeah. And I love St. John's. So if that scenario happens, I can't lose. So I can't say, let's see, get to that point, right? That's a big if.
I'm going to give you a scenario.
All right, give me a scenario. Okay. Here we go.
So we're in the fourth quarter.
Fourth quarter, second half, you mean? No, that's not
fourth quarter.
NBA guy. All right, go.
Sorry.
Yeah, second half. Go.
Second half, folks. I'm sorry. It was a long trip here. A long day.
That's okay.
Okay. So, second half, minute to go, tie score. Who are you going to root for? St. John's has the ball.
And it's a tie score?
Tie score.
That is just fascinating. Who would I be rooting for? Because I have to say that they are on equal footing in my mind right now. They really are. And I would be... Because 10 years ago, answer would have been Maryland by a mile. But I'm just so happy for New York in general and college hoops to come back. Mm-hmm. And then I've been to numerous games, our connection as well. So it's really, they're kind of even. And my new beloved team is the Baylor Bears, where our son went, our great producer. So I have that tie-in. And I have to say, when you're paying the bills... it actually kind of has the biggest tie. So I will say that, and we got very lucky. He started going there, I guess, in 2018. The women's won the national championship in basketball. The men won the national championship, right. And then even in football, they won the Sugar Bowl one year. So we've been blessed, literally. So, on that note, let's see what we got coming in. Hello. Dan, Lieutenant Dan Lettuce, is this you?
Oh, Mr. Zubulake, how are you, my friend?
Hey, I'm doing good, man. I apologize about that. We'll do some editing around it, but it's okay because when you're doing your first show, being live taped, you kind of run into some snags. But we're just
Absolutely.
happy. Yeah, absolutely. How are you?
How are you doing? And I hope my friend John Kalaboukas is floating around there.
I am here. You are on the Bouk and Zoobie show live,
Awesome.
Lieutenant Dan.
Yeah. My career has hit its heights right now. So.
Yes,
Thank you guys so much. Calling in on St. Patty's Day, that's awesome, Lieutenant Dan got his Irish up over the weekend, so I put myself on the bench today to stay out of trouble. And hoping to talk to you guys, now this is a call-in show, so,
right.
I'm calling you with my questions for you guys. Are you ready?
All right.
Well, we'll definitely start there. But yeah, definitely happy thanks St. Patty's Day. Sorry. Easy for me to say. Anyway, Dan, go for it. What's your question?
All right, so listen, you guys are heavy with, obviously not my sports teams, right? And I know that the topic of the day, I would think, is St. John's, the Johnnies. That's awesome, right?
Yeah, we were just talking about them.
John, were you at the game?
I was at the game with Mr. Zuby.
I was there too, Dan.
Oh, no way. How'd you squeeze him in? You guys, obviously, you know people, right?
Yeah, I usually get tickets to these things pretty easily. So, yeah, the only difference is that we were behind the basket, like on the second level behind. It was like a first row of, glass in front of us, and then we had like a monitor next to us.
We actually.
It wasn't my normal seat. It wasn't my normal seat.
Right.
So,
okay, you mean you couldn't have bumped Spike Lee out?
No, yeah, right.
With a fan, you could have got yourself down there, right?
Yeah, Spike, who never showed up to not one game all year, and all of a sudden started showing up now. I love these front runners, but anyway, listen, this is a happy time for many people in New York, especially me. I mean, again, we're talking about 40 years with them being first place in the Big East and 25 years winning the Big East tournament. So this is big. And the fact that they're selling out and people are excited and talking about St. John's, it's a great thing. It's a really
it is, and they're like the talk of the town, considering what's going on with some of the local teams. Taking a couple bumps in a row with the Knicks, and the hockey teams aren't doing its best, and what's going on with football. This is definitely what this town needed. And if I could just throw my 2 cents in there as a St. John's, I am not an alumni, but back in '82, me and a couple of friends from Mineola High School, class of '82, we actually played in the pep band for St. John's.
That's right. That's right. I remember that. I remember that.
'82.
I remember that. Yes.
So wait. I want to hear this in a little more detail. So you're saying that St. John's outsourced the pep band in 1982?
82 and 83, I believe, if my numbers are correct. I might be off a little. Yes, we had a gentleman who went to Mineola High School and went to St. John's, and St. John's was looking for a pep band, and he reached out to us. I think we were either seniors or we just graduated, and we drummed up about 10 of us, and yes, we represented them in 82, 83, but that was short-lived because I guess everybody from the college said, why are these guys playing pep band? We can't get enough people of our own, and that was it.
There you
that
go.
Was before, you could take pictures and stuff. So yes, we were down for the playoff, the Big East tournament. Yeah, I was a trumpet player back in the day. Before I was a lieutenant in the fire department, yes, I cut my chops with the trumpet, as you guys know.
That's right. Danny, if you remember, Danny has been playing the trumpet since elementary school.
Wow.
So back then, I remember we used to have a teacher called Dr. Fabre, who was like a classical guy, and he was trying to teach Danny and the rest of the group how to play the song to SWAT. You remember that song? You remember that, Danny?
John, you're bringing back too many memories.
This is like, hey.
when I hang up with you guys, I might have to blow the dust off the old fluid.
Oh my God, that is pretty funny. That's a really funny story. How that St. John's pep band in those 2 years were a bunch of high school guys.
Because it didn't, and they paid us. They paid us like $50 a game.
That's right.
So it was
what?
Yes, it was a good experience, and
wow.
Like I said, it was very surprising. Like, sure, we'll play a gig, and it turned out to be St. John's University. So it's.
Well, you've got that tie too, right, Jane? Because you two of your children have gone to St. John's, right?
Yes, my daughter and my son. Yes, they did very well. They graduated, and it's like I said, we do have those. Do have a little tradition in St. John's, and so happy to see them doing so well.
Now, are the kids excited? I know they graduated, but are they into it, or they could care less?
Yeah, well, my daughter's, she's not a big sports fan. My son wanted me to get tickets for Providence. He wanted to take the road trip.
Wow.
Which. He's all talk. If I'm buying, he's flying. So I'll pay for it. So
right. There you go.
But are you guys happy? It's weird, right? So they got a. Is that so? Am I correct? They're in the West, but they're playing in Providence.
Yeah. So we were actually just complaining about that, and I was telling the stories. Is not only is St. John's out in the West region, Maryland, one of my other teams, is in the West region, Dan, and not only are they in the West region for the finals, if they could get there, of the West. They're out there in the first and second round in Seattle. So we already ripped the selection committee for not taking care of certain universities and taking care of others because it's blatantly obvious which ones get the shaft. Because I was telling John, Dan, when I went to college back then, Maryland always got screwed. So there's definitely some bias. But it doesn't matter. You're going to have to play. You got to play everybody anyway, ultimately.
Right.
I mean, the travel is, I'm talking about for the fans. Right, you follow a university, you want to go to these games, and they're telling you have to go to the opposite coast to go. Yeah. I mean, that's what I'm talking about. The players are fine. They're not going to have a problem with that.
Well, look at Florida. Florida's out there too.
Right, Florida's out there too. So Dan, I know you have that connection to St. John's, but I know we don't have you that long. But I want to make sure that we got your thoughts on the Giants. I'm sorry if you had another thought there, if you wanted to add before I want to shift gears to the Giants.
Well, if you're going to make me talk about the Giants, I we might get disconnected, but no. The Giants, I'm totally like some of the rants that I've been hearing lately from you with the Jets as an older Jet fan, and what you want to deal with at this point in your life and dealing with the same nonsense. I'm kind of at that rope too, that we're waiting on a dopey Aaron Rodgers to make a move on a quarterback, which there's nobody. I mean, I heard today they brought in Jameis Winston, which, listen, as a Giant fan, I would sign him in a minute because I know we're not going to be. I'll be watching games that the Giants lose 24-3, 24-10, 35-3. So at least I know he'll throw 3 interceptions, but he'll throw 3 touchdown passes. So, you'll see, like, you're not just sitting there killing a Sunday watching, like, offense isn't doing anything. So, I mean, I don't know where they're going. I mean, I don't know where they're going with the draft, and anything I would say I'd like them to do is the wrong. It always turns out wrong. So I'm just going to hold my breath, see what happens, and it's like anything else. I'll watch as much as I can. And with the whole quarterback situation, I would prefer them, I don't want them trading up to get Ward because I don't want to give up assets. We need too many things at the quarterback, but as you guys know, with the coach and the GM, this is their swan song, so they have to do something.
Yeah, no, we were talking about it last week where they're in a weird spot, right? So if Ward drops to 3, they're going to take him, Dan, in a nanosecond,
absolutely.
right?
I would definitely take him at 3, but and you hit the nail on the head. It's all smoke and mirrors and stuff, but it's you look at 2 lousy run organizations like Tennessee and Cleveland, and if they're passing on the quarterback, what does that say about them?
Right.
So,
or the player, I guess, where there's mixed, because you would think so. We were. Yeah, I'm on the record. I think they're blowing smoke and they're taking Ward. I think that's what the Titans are doing. The Giants, Danny. Once that happens, they're in this weird spot. And I also said last week that I just think the Rodgers stuff was actually coming out of the Rodgers camp. But it's been reported that supposedly they made him an offer. Have you heard that? I mean, is that really accurate, or is he just think that's made up too? I just can't believe they have made up.
I haven't heard that, but I know like the newcomer that came into the mix is obviously Minnesota. Now I think that might be smoke blow. You know what I'm saying? Because it's like it's the same. You know, if you hear the same things that I do, but basically, you know. Rodgers would love to go full circle and go to Minnesota, but Minnesota supposedly already said that, you know, McCarthy's going to be their guy. That's why Mother effing Jones went to the Colts for $17 million, possibly $17 million, but Daniel Jones going to the Colts. You can't make that up, you know? You were talking about Zach Wilson last week, right? I mean, it's the same kind of mindset, right? I can't believe that that's what these guys are getting, you know? And Jones is going to battle with Richardson. Now, you know.
He might win it. He might win that job, Dan. He might win that job. I don't know.
I don't know. So, but I think what I would like them to do, I would like to have them pick the best available at 3. I know and again, smoke and mirrors. This guy Dart, he's been getting a lot of press and stuff, but you know, you're gonna have to trade back in the first round to get him. I'm not picking him 3, but then you have all these guys. If you really like him, if he's your guy, pick him. And I've heard that with Daniel Jones, who they picked him at 6. They're like, well, he was the guy they wanted, and they picked him, and you know, and we're paying the price ever since. So.
I'll tell you, it's going to be exciting. It really is. I mean, I watching from not being a Giant fan is what they're going to do. And we really, and because we talk about the Giants because we do the show, right, John?
Sure.
So I'm interested more than from a strategy perspective, completely. That because it's so blatantly obvious that getting the quarterback as the rookie saves them their jobs.
Yeah, that's correct.
It does.
Yeah.
And that's why I thought the Rodgers stuff was always made up, because that's a death nail for them. So
yeah, well, that's just weird, you know, Paul. You hit the nail on the head. That if they get this whatever quarterback they're going to get. I mean, does it matter if you sign Rodgers? Does it matter if you sign Wilson? Is that going to move the needle for who? I mean, they're going to win you what? Aaron Rodgers is going to win you X amount of games. Wilson's going to win you X. You're not talking 10-5. They're all going to be bunched together. Even if you bring Winston, how many games do you expect to win next year?
Right.
But you want to be competent, I guess. So, is 5 wins a lot? I know John mentioned that. Does 5 wins save their job? I don't know.
Yeah.
I guess you're not going to see, right? I don't think you'll see the quarterback start next year if they pick one of these guys from the second round. Or, and again, the smoke and mirrors, do they want Sanders? I mean, his stock has dropped way off the map,
Well, that's it also. I think there's a lot of noise there, too. I don't think he's going to drop as much as people say. I think that, to me, the Giants are going to take a quarterback at 3, and they're going to play him. And I think it could be Sanders. I really do. I think there's a shot that it could be him.
Uh-huh.
I don't think it would be Dart.
No.
I mean, Charlie Weiss's son coached him in college, I believe, right? So it's got a lot of the local media guys all, talking about it. That would be an insane pick if they did that. So hopefully...
Because you got Eli talking about him, too, because he went to Eli's camp, the quarterback camp. So it's like, last time they had somebody like Eli was Dopey Jones. Right? So I don't know what to think of these things. And like you said, and it's funny, that was one of the questions I'm going to pivot and ask you guys.
All right.
Because my questions to you guys, as a big fan of the show, and I listen all the time, first time calling, I was going to say, this is a 3-part question. Who do you want the Jets to pick if they pick, number 7, correct?
Mm-hmm. Correct, okay, 7.
Who do you think they're going to pick?
Okay.
And if primetime Sanders drops to you guys at 7, would you take him?
Wow, that's do you want to take a stab, John, or me being the president?
All right,
go first.
I'm going to answer his second question.
Okay.
If Sanders dropped down, I would take him.
Okay.
I would 100% take him, even though... I'm just looking at the bloodline more than anything because his father was just such a great athlete. And, the son's not bad either. I mean,
he's a good player.
He has potential. Why not take a shot? I mean, what do they have to lose? Really, what do they have to lose at this point? If they, at least they can develop someone. If Fields doesn't work out, which, again, we know him as a scrambler, not so much an intelligent passer, but I would take him. I
think Sanders would. I think he could actually beat him out.
Yeah.
So Sanders is. It's weird, Dan, because everybody and their mother had him going. There was a 1-2 Ward and him, and of course now everybody's picking at him because he's. I guess because he didn't work out and he kind of showed up, and I think they thought the attitude. People are afraid of the attitude. But I'll actually throw another, not even a question back at you, Dan, but another scenario is that what the Jets should do, Dan, is trade down, right?
Yeah.
So and it's so hard to find a partner, but if Sanders slides to 7 and the Jets are on the clock, maybe somebody wants to trade up for Sanders.
Maybe, yeah.
So that would be the ballsy move from Mr. Muji. Can you imagine the uproar if he's there and then they trade out? And because there's demand for that pick. Now, it all depends on what they get. So it could actually be the best move for the team. So you're asking me who do I want them to take? I want them to take, there's a guy, he's a wide receiver from Arizona, McMillan, right? He's got a Ted McMillan, right? He's a big guy. He ran in his pro day, I think it was today actually, ran under 4.5. So he is now possibly in the top 5. This is like a weird draft, right, folks? It's a couple of really, Abdul Carter's the other name, and then, of course, Travis Hunter, who played with Sanders at Colorado. Now, being a Big 12 guy, I've seen Sanders play many times. And he's one of these guys that he will not give up, and he's a clutch player. Mm-hmm. So physically, right, he's not good. When you see him, he's not going to wow you, right? Because he's just not that physical a guy. And he's, he can move, but he's not a runner. I mean, most people probably think because of his dad, he can run like crazy. He's actually not like that, but he can maneuver in the pocket. So I think it's fascinating. So, I mean, if Sanders is there at 7 from old man fan perspective, you're going to be more into that because, Dan, as you know from listening to us, that it's just more of the same and it's going to be another nowhere. So at least a kid like that would bring excitement to the team. I don't see it happening because ultimately I think he's actually going to go in the top 6. I think it's a lot of smoke around him. I don't believe it.
And Dan, and for those of you who follow the Jets, Paul and I were talking about this or texting each other about the Jets going after the bargain basement bin. That's what they've been doing. Paul, do you know any of these people that they've been signing? I mean, some of them vaguely, but it's real bottom of the barrel.
They're all guys who may make the roster. They're all bubble guys. They're depth pieces. The Jets are in a rebuild. This is a 3 to 5 year rebuild. I'll say it once, I'll say it again. That is it. There is no quick fix. It's going to be rough next year. And can Aaron Glenn handle it, Dan? Can Aaron Glenn handle the pressure of having a bad year? That, to me, is something to watch.
Well, that's like you were saying, though. But if the coaching staff, if the coaching staff is good and can get the most out of their players, and you see improvement in the whole team, then, maybe it's not a 3 or 5 years because you do have some pieces, that you want to sign. I mean, I find it funny, like you were mentioning who the Jets picked up, and, the Giants picked up the same kind of players. They could have signed their own, but they have to go outside the box and get some of these guys. But I just seen a blip about Philadelphia got another Giant, Jalari. Would sign with the Phillies for 1 year.
There you go, breaking news. Yeah. But also
and that's another thing with Shane, Sean, whatever you want to call him. I got bad words to call him. He could have got a draft pick for him. Right? You could have got a pick for him at the trading deadline, but he didn't want to take a 7. He didn't want to take a 6. And you might need those picks to trade up. So he didn't do nothing, and then like the following week or two, he got hurt, and he was out for the year. So like some of these moves, like he's a very stubborn guy, and it's just like, you know, you're losing players, and you watch, you go to other teams, and, you know, the Jets, a couple of the Jets guys left to go to other teams. They paid him good money. I mean, again, it's the free agency goes up every year, so some of these guys, most guys get overpaid, you know, so it's frustrating on both of us, both of our teams. And I will laugh if the Giants have Sanders sitting there, they pass on him, and the Jets pick him up. Oof. I mean, that would be the best.
Oof.
You know, you're talking about trading up to get Sanders, but I look through everybody's roster, you know, for most part with the quarterbacks. I mean, the only team I see that would trade up maybe that needs a quarterback would be Pittsburgh. You know, it seems like all these other teams, unless the Raiders, who just got Geno, might make a move, but, you know, it's going to be very interesting, you know, because there's nobody, like I said, Pittsburgh's in the quandary like the Giants, kind of like the Jets. They got field. So, like I said, the draft is going to be very interesting this year. And I don't even know which way it's going. When you have your friend, the draft guru, on, I'd be interested to see who he picks, you know?
Well, we'll definitely, probably could be our next show, might be our draft show. But Dan, quickly, we got to let you go. But we just should mention.
All this valuable time here.
No, of course not. We appreciate you calling. We love talking to you. We're going to get you back on the show again. But the Giants did sign Javon Holland, right, the safety. So we did definitely want to mention that. So Dan, we'll talk to you soon. And again, man, thanks for calling in.
Always a pleasure. The Bouk and Zoobie show. You guys have a good one. I'll talk to you soon. Thank you, brother.
All right, thanks, Dan.
Bye. Take care. All right, bye-bye.
Well, we always appreciate Lieutenant Dan calling in.
Lieutenant Dan's the best.
Yeah, absolutely.
He's the best. And, the one thing that I wanted to say to Lieutenant Dan was also, what does he think about the absurd salaries that are being paid? I mean, the fact that Daniel Jones getting that ridiculous contract, and you had Mac Jones getting ridiculous money.
And Mac Jones signed too, right?
Who else? Kirk Cousins ended up being renewed.
They picked up his
$10 million.
Right, they picked up his roster bonus, we'll call it. Yeah, that's interesting. They're going to stick with him as the backup to Penix.
And but with that Sam Darnold contract,
right? It's like
they have an out.
Yeah.
After 1 year, they could say, okay, Darnold didn't work out. $37.5 million.
Yeah.
Out.
Well, that
was a smart move by the Seahawks.
Absolutely.
Very smart move.
So there's been a lot of changes. It's all good. Hopefully, hopefully the next caller I answer it a little quicker. So I guess this is again our first time doing something like this. So this is definitely an interesting ride. So. Anything else based on?
Well, I mean, we know that C.J. Mosley is gone. Basically.
Yes.
He's gone. What about our man Mekhi Becton?
Yeah.
Getting a pretty large contract there, 2 years, $20 million.
Yeah, which the Chargers.
Yeah, amazing for someone that was on the scrap heap. Had one decent year with the Eagles, and he parlayed that into $20 million.
I'm surprised that he didn't want to go back to Philly. Philly didn't want to pay him. Probably. So that's going to be interesting. He's with Harbaugh, which is good because Becton needs a coach like that who's going to stay on top of him. Unlike Robert Saleh, who unfortunately did not keep that under control there, and it's just so hard, right, John, to develop these guys coming out, because most of them now, this year is again a little weird because we're still in the COVID era where there's a lot of older prospects, Cam Ward being one of them, and even Sanders. They're both like 22, 23. Right. And that matters because it's a maturity situation, because there's a lot of guys, they just can't handle becoming a professional.
And they 100% need some seasoning. I mean, they have to get seasoning here.
Yeah, and they just expecting miracles and the expectations, you just got to notch it down. So if the Jets or the Giants end up with Sanders, I think you got to be patient. And this is like, they're not going to walk in and set the world on fire. And it's just interesting how everybody is just kind of beating up on the kid all of a sudden. Because, again, like I said, he just physically is not imposing. And I guess there is this character concern. But I got to tell you, when I watched the kid play, John, He's a blood and guts type of kid. He's not like a guy who just like gives up. Like I say, he'll like lay it on the line, and I think that's like one of the most important attributes
and you
of
actually,
an athlete.
And you think he'll actually beat out Fields if we pick him?
I mean, the first year he's not gonna. Let's let it happen, and then we can discuss it.
Okay.
Because that's a kind of crazy hypothetical. I don't think it's going to happen. But yeah, in theory, they would probably start him on the bench, which would be smart, right? But I just think that he ultimately, by the end of the season, he would be playing. I just don't. I know a lot of people are out there with the Justin Fields hype that he can develop into a good player still. I'm very skeptical, John.
I'll give him a shot like everyone else. You know,
yeah, of course we're going to give him.
We'll give him a chance.
Absolutely.
But one of our. It's funny. There was a court case that was settled just this week with a Jet that was around for a very short time and who had the most famous holdout. It cost himself money, and now he is going to pay a ton of money for sexually abusing his cousin, Le'Veon Bell.
Oh, there's accusations on with him, right?
It's not an accusation. He was convicted.
He was convicted.
Not only that, he has to pay $25 million in penalties to the victim.
I had no idea. I saw the story. I just thought it was an accusation.
$25 million. There's a judgment against him. So, Mr. Bell, with all the holdout, and you wanted all this money, this is another story of an NFL football player who's going to probably be claiming bankruptcy within 24 hours or 48 hours of that judgment coming.
And it's incredible because all these, the background checks, each team has a security office and checking out the players, and it's still over and over and over again. These stories come out where, and look what happened, again, we haven't talked about is the craziest probably story is Justin Tucker, the kicker for the Ravens, on his accusations. I mean, he's like in the Deshaun Watson category.
It's amazing.
I just don't get these guys. I mean, show some respect. These people are just making a living, and you have to it's very bizarre, John. Very bizarre.
Well, what was even more bizarre is now, I don't know if you read this, Mark Gastineau
saw that.
Suing for $25 million because that they didn't show the full video of the interaction between him and Brett Favre. Supposedly, they just showed a snippet of it, but didn't show him actually, them shaking hands and making up with each other. So he's now suing, I think it's ESPN.
Yeah, of course. Yeah,
$25 million.
So you never got to see that yet? You never saw that?
No, I saw it.
Oh, you did see the
I saw it,
30 for 30. Right?
Yeah, I saw it, but...
Oh, okay. They did make them, but we had talked about this briefly. Like they made them, like they didn't explain Mark and Abdul Salam's physical issues, conditions that they had.
That's correct.
And then people who don't know the story, they watch these shows. It's like, what's wrong with Mark Gastineau? What's wrong with him?
Yeah.
And it's a shame. And then, like on top of it, they allegedly did this, right?
Yeah.
So it was still a good show if you're a Jet fan. But it's sad because that's not a good, accurate portrayal of a person. I hate to hear that.
The problem is that when they have them sign these releases, that they're allowed to show the footage. But, can he actually win this case? They said, well, you didn't show the entire footage. You only showed part of the footage. So...
Yeah. Anyway, I doubt if he's going to get money out of that.
I don't know. I don't know what he's doing. But there were some signings also while we're on the subject of football. So the Bengals ended up signing Chase and Higgins extensions. So that was major for them.
Yeah.
Signed them for, over $250 million combined for the both of them. And
Chase got paid a good amount more than Higgins, right? So, right?
Yeah, actually, if I'm reading this, so he had 4 years, $161 million.
Right.
$112 million of it guaranteed.
Wow.
Whereas Higgins, you're right, 4 years, $115 million. So he got a about $45 million less than him.
Right.
$10 million less per year.
Well,
that's surprising.
I mean, obviously Chase is the superior player, but what do you? It was great that they got that done. A franchise who historically, screws this sort of thing up. But at the same time, they're dumping a lot of money into one position. That could definitely backfire on you as well. So, that was... and then also...
Hopkins signed with the Ravens.
Yeah, that happened. But I was going to bring up the other big thing, because we talked about last week how I mentioned about J.C. Horn, the corner who got paid. And then today, Derek Stingley got paid by the Texans. And he got $90 million for 3 years, which on the average is obviously more than the other deal by Horn. And of course, immediately we have to read these ridiculous comments that now Sauce Gardner deserves that sort of money. And it's like, no, he doesn't.
No way.
Based on what?
No way.
Where he was drafted or how he's playing. So the Jets, hold back. I mean, you are a franchise that is rebuilding. The last thing you want to do is sink a ton of money into a cornerback coming off of let's face it, it was if you just looked at him and not knew who he was, I don't want to say average, because he does still have ability to cover, and the teams do go the other way, so it's a little deceiving, but his hands are terrible, and he can't tackle. He can cover, but I'm not making him the highest paid corner, so... The Jets are in this situation where they should just wait it out, John.
What do you think about the signing that the Jets did with, what's that guy's name, Nardi?
Yeah, Noddy. He actually used to play more. He didn't play much last year with the Chiefs.
Got a 3-year deal from them.
It's probably another one of these dressed up 1-year deals, right? Yeah, so, John... The Jets
I don't know much about him.
No, Noddy was a pretty good player for the Chiefs. He was on both Super Bowl championship teams. He supposedly didn't play a lot last year. I don't know if it was hurt or ineffective, but he's just another rotational piece inside. He's not a difference maker. The Jets are they're just filling roster spots. Yeah. They're not making... None of these guys are difference makers. Yeah. No way. They haven't brought in anybody who's a difference maker at all. Yeah. So they are... Again, I don't want to keep saying this until the season starts... But that's what they're in. They're in a rebuild. So we're looking forward to the draft. We're going to have a draft show. Our draft analyst, Alex, I believe, is he booked yet? Have you spoken to young Alex?
He's booked. You just have to tell me when you want him on.
All right. So
he's ready to come on.
We'll see how that plays out. So you could check it out, John. See what's going on, because we're doing our best to keep to schedule here, and. We were hoping that we would have somebody calling in any minute, but we might have to find them.
We have some glitches here.
Yeah, is that what you're seeing? You're saying I can't get through? Is that what's going on?
Let's see. Anyway, so in the meantime, why don't we talk about? Well, number one, I'm going to ask you, since the first and second rounds are in Providence, Rhode Island.
Okay.
And I will probably get tickets. Well, listen, Thursday is definitely out because there's no way I'm traveling to Providence to go see a 10 o'clock St. John's game and come home, 4 o'clock in the morning? Yeah.
Right, yeah, no.
I'm sleeping. But if they advance to Saturday,
right, would you consider
going to Providence?
Probably not, because that is a overnight type of situation. You talk about day tripping to Rhode Island. Is that what you're saying?
Yeah, it's 3 hours.
It's 3 hours.
3 hours for me. I don't know what it is for you.
Oh, it's just it's more probably. I haven't mapped it out. Yeah, that is a rough day trip. As much as I love the Johnnies, that'll probably not happen, because you have to think of the beauty of March Madness. Is that there's games all day and they overlap. So if you attend games, you're not watching a lot of games.
Right.
So I'm gonna have to tell you no on that, John. So maybe one of our wonderful lawyer listeners can raise their hand in the comments section.
Actually, I'm gonna throw another scenario at you. You ready?
Sure.
what if St. John's makes the final and we get a chance to win the championship?
That's in what, San Antonio?
San Antonio on a Monday.
On a Monday, right. That's the championship game will be on a Monday. Yeah, well, I could tie that into work somehow, right?
Well, that's true. That's true.
But, so I will say, I did go to the 2002 Final Four, Maryland winning the national championship. And by the way, if you go to these Final Fours, man, when you win them, my God, it's unbelievable. So they beat Oklahoma, and then actually Oklahoma was the best team that year besides them, and then Indiana at that point upset Oklahoma. So the Maryland played Kansas in the semifinals, which was a really good game, and then in the finals, in an absolute ugly mess of a game, they beat Indiana, who was like a huge shock when they had Coach Mike Davis was the coach who took over for Bob Knight.
Yeah.
And then that's a good one we'll throw out there about like the bubble teams. Now with the 68 teams, anybody who doesn't make it, John, ultimately doesn't have an excuse, but there were a couple of things. Obviously North Carolina getting in when their AD is the head of the committee to pick the teams. And of course, he's not in the room. Oh.
Yes, welcome to the Bouk and Zoobie show. Gamal, you are on our live show.
Oh, thanks for having me. Great to be on.
Hey, Gamal, how are you, man?
I'm good. How you doing, bud?
I'm doing great, and I'll tell you something. I so happy that you were able to make the time to call in, because people may not remember this, but Gamal was on our show previously, and we talked a little bit about his basketball career, and incredibly, your former coach is like a major story today, Gamal. So, I mean, Tobin Anderson, right, who rose to fame at Fairleigh Dickinson, right, a couple of years ago, and ended up parlaying the job that Pitino left at Iona, and then he took them to the conference finals, Gamal, of the MAC tournament, not the MAC, whatever the conference is, and they fired him? What happened? What is going on?
I don't know. I just saw this a little while ago, and I'm really floored by that. I really am. I'm dying to see what comes out, as we find out more about the situation. But no, I was really taken aback by that.
Just really a head scratcher. And I guess some of the initial reports, Gamal, were talking about how on the NIL side, I mean, this like some concerns about being able to raise enough money to field a team. So it sounds like this is like booster driven, where just because they had Rick Pitino, that they're going to expect the same sort of type of coach. That was like a 1 in a million shot that Pitino went to Iona.
Right. Yeah. It's strange to me. I'm wondering if it's a money issue.
He had go. You know what's crazy, guys, is that he I believe he reached the title game.
Yeah, he did.
I think they fell to St. Mary's.
Right. Yeah.
So it's like, the guy gets you right to the finals, and you're getting rid of him. I agree with you. I agree with your book. I think there's definitely more to this. Definitely booster driven for sure, guys.
Wow, that's a huge disappointment. And I really just thought it was unbelievable when I heard that news. And Gamal, we were going to talk to Gamal. So, Gamal, we're going to open it up, right, to anything you want to talk about. Any subject, questions for us? What do you, or actually even something that's been annoying you about any sport or just the league or anything you want to throw out there. Go for it.
Well, I got to be honest with you guys. What I got to talk about, and I'm actually very excited about, is what is shaping up in the Western Conference of the NBA.
Okay. Yeah.
I got to tell you,
it's crazy.
There was, usually, it's not very often that we have trades mid-season that, people are like, oh my gosh, this made such a huge difference. I got to tell you, somehow, some way, the OGs found their way back in the mix. The Lakers picking up Luka, the Warriors picking up Jimmy Butler. These two teams have now just found a new life. And let me tell you, if these guys end up on opposite sides of the Western Conference bracket, they are going to cause a lot of trouble.
Well, they already are. I mean, look at the record of the Warriors with Butler. I think, what have they lost one game since he's 14-1? And then you have Luka. I mean, he I don't know if you've been following Luka at all. Mm-hmm. He had I'm sorry, Gamal. I'm actually looking at Paul when I'm saying this. Luka, I don't know if you saw that game when he scored 45 points. He made it look like he was with children out there. I mean, the guy's an amazing player. I am stunned and of the stupidity of the Mavericks. And clearly, after they traded him, the whole team is hurt. They're talking about them forfeiting games now because they're not going to have enough to put on the court now. Because they don't have in other words, there's so many players injured that there's only so many times you can sign players to 10-day contracts. Really? So they may end up forfeiting some games unless Silver bends the rules for them, which I think he will. I mean, I can't imagine.
What is the actual rule? What is the rule?
Well,
how many guys have to shoot up? 8? Or is it like, do they have...
I don't know what the rule is,
okay.
but they're saying that they're not going to have enough to even put on the floor.
Okay.
With 5 guys.
They don't even have 5.
There's so many injuries on that team. It's crazy, right, Gamal? I mean, it's almost like they were immediately cursed after they traded Luka.
Yes, and the rule is, Paul, that you have to be able to dress at least 8 players for a game. You have to force it.
There you go.
Yeah.
Gamal, I don't know. You might have to fly down to Dallas. You might have to lace them up, my man.
Maybe I could get a 10-day contract.
But they would have to give you a long-term deal. Is that what you said? They have to give you like at least a year? Because a 10-day is a minimum, right?
Yeah, but they're limited to how many 10-day contracts.
Right, no, I'm joking. Gamal can squeeze him for a year.
Yeah.
You could hit that 3, though. What do you think, Gamal? You could still hit a 3.
Listen, I can still knock you down. You leave me open, I can still knock you down.
There you go. I know about defending anybody, that could be a little difficult.
That's a different story.
All right, so that's a good one. I'm glad you're talking about NBA. So, because you have you like the Knicks, you like the Raptors, who don't even count anymore, right? So we won't go there. So you're saying right now, if you had to make a choice, you would maybe actually pick the Lakers or the Warriors over the Thunder to come out of the West, or is that premature?
Well, I'm not saying that they're going to. I'm saying that they're going to make some noise. They're going to send someone home. Okay. Both of those teams are sending somebody home because you know what? You look. They have the experience. They have guys who've been there before. The Warriors keep having all season guys on their bench has been stepping up, playing well. We all know not only is playoff Jimmy a real thing, but a motivated Jimmy Butler is most definitely a real thing. I was watching them a couple of days ago. I'm seeing Draymond now is hitting open threes again. It really is something. So I think that they could cause some problems in the playoffs. Definitely the Lakers, just strictly on the strength of them having LeBron and Luka, and nobody has an answer for either one of those two. So it's gonna. I could see them sending a young team home. I could see them sending, someone who might not, they might get caught sleeping.
Right.
I mean, and I wanted to ask you, and I'm watching them disintegrate before my eyes, and I actually picked them out of the West last year to go pretty far. What's going on with the Phoenix Suns? I mean, it's incredible. They're talking about trading Booker now. I mean, what happened to this team? They get all these star players, they can't play together, or they're hurt and they never play together. I mean, you talk about a team just fumbling away, just totally. I don't know what happened. Durant, it looks like he wants out of there already.
Let me tell you something. I got to tell you something, Bouk. It is crazy. They're talking about trading KD. They're talking about trading Booker. They're talking about trading the mascot, trading the guy with popcorn. They're trading it. There's nobody left. It is truly unbelievable what is happening in Phoenix. You look, that has got to be one of the biggest busts of all time. And let me go a step further, and I want to get on this, but I just want to throw it out there, something food for thought. What does this say about KD's legacy, that these are now two teams that you've gone to that have been nothing but an absolute bust, despite the fact that you've been loaded with talent?
That's right. That's right.
And I love KD. I'm a big KD fan. I think KD is a hooper-super. I think he is the most efficient shooter of all time. I mean, all KD needs is 24 shots. He's giving you 30-something. Probably close to 40. Like, he is that good of a player. But, this is not good for his legacy. And you look at Phoenix, and again, on paper, they have everything that they need. But, you know what? I think it's a locker room issue. I think it's a culture issue. I think it's a lack of leadership issue. There's a lot of things going on there. You have a great coach. We all know Budenholzer is a great coach.
Yes, he is. Yes, he is.
So, well,
they don't play a lick of defense. They've never, the past 2 years, they haven't played a lick of defense, that team.
I mean, ultimately,
yeah,
but it's about also sharing the ball. You got Booker, Beal, and Durant, and how do you share the ball? And who's
That's right.
and it's just sometimes it's just like a bad mix. So I'm pulling up the standings, but the Thunder really, this is amazing. They are so far in front.
Yeah.
So they pretty much have the 1 seed locked. So it's just really a lack of experience type of thing in the big moment. Maybe they get tripped up.
Yeah.
So would you? But honestly, you watch the NBA a lot more than I know John does, much more than I do. So the few times I've watched them play, it's really just just like they played as a team. And then to see our guy Hartenstein playing, I guess he had a broken nose or something recently. He was playing with the mask, but that's painful as a Knicks fan to watch Hartenstein play for another team.
Yeah.
Absolutely. And the Thunder, they're such a well-balanced team. They're very deep. And when you watch them play, you see that, the addition of Hartenstein has made such a huge difference. People question Chet Holmgren at the center, is he strong enough? Can he hold it down? Well, they solved that when they brought in Hartenstein from the Knicks. They're aggressive on defense. They bring in Caruso. I saw last night in the game, Caruso literally took the ball from Dame. Literally snatched it like he stole his lunch from him. Just took it out of his hand and went the other way. So this is a team. They just do it on both ends. And you know what? They are a very complete team.
It's funny that you mentioned Caruso. Anunoby's favorite person to watch, he said, in basketball was Caruso because he loves the way he plays defense. Did you know that?
Absolutely.
He mentioned it the other day because Anunoby doesn't really show much emotion at all. If he smiles, it's like news on the Knicks.
Right.
And so they gave him like an interview. He says 2-word answers.
Right.
But they asked him, "What's the player that you most like?" And he said Caruso because he loves watching him play defense, and he learns from him. So that's pretty funny that you brought that up. And, for the fans out there that are saying, oh, why didn't the Knicks sign Hartenstein? They had their hands tied on that. They would have definitely paid more than what the Thunder paid, but
they couldn't.
They couldn't.
Some crazy rules, right?
And
we haven't actually mentioned the Knicks at all, Kamal. So, as we have you here, so what's your view on the Knickerbockers, and John, of course, pipe in with the your thoughts. Is now, let's face it, it's all about positioning in the playoffs.
Absolutely. The Knicks are in a great position. They're 5 away from Boston in number 3. They're 5 away from, I think, the Bucks in number 4. So they are in sole position of that number 3 spot. I think the Knicks are going to do well. I think it is not a stretch. I think we should all expect the Knicks to make it to the Eastern Finals. I think that is a realistic expectation. The question is, do they have enough to beat either Cleveland or Boston? And the answer to that is no. Not currently constructed.
Right.
Not currently. But I don't want to say that as a bad thing, because I think this is a good thing, because the Knicks have shown over the past 3 years that they are making the right moves, they're moving in the right direction, and they've done, they're doing all of the right things. They are, a couple pieces away. We need a better center, 100%. We have to improve our bench. Because when we play against the Bostons and the Cleveland, we haven't beaten them all year. So there is a considerable drop-off from us to them, but we are moving in the right direction 1,000%. And I think that, and I got to say this, I said this from the onset when he was hired, and here we are, and I'm going to say it again. Tom Thibodeau's shelf life for the New York Knicks is 3 years. We are coming to the end of year 3. It's time to move on and get the next coach who can help us take the next step.
All right.
Yeah, Gamal actually has been saying this from the time that they hired him, and Gamal has made it a point every time he sees me and every time we're watching a game, whether it's St. John's or we're talking, that he gives too many minutes to his players. And Gamal, we were actually at the game, one of the St. John's games, and you were saying to me, when Bridges, of all players, brings up that Thibodeau's giving too many minutes, then we know that there's a problem.
Yeah, well, it's interesting because Achua has not been playing again. Has he taken him out of the rotation?
Yeah, he hasn't been in there that much, no.
Yeah, he hasn't been in that much. And Bouk, you're absolutely right. Bridges has a reputation of being one of the league's Iron Men. Like, this guy just goes. So yeah, when a guy like him starts talking about it, yeah, you know that there's legitimately a problem. Now listen, this is not to throw shade at Tom Thibodeau. He has served his purpose. Tom Thibodeau is excellent. You probably will not find better at establishing the culture that you want inside of the locker room and with the team. 1,000%. He gets the right attitude. He gets the guys working together. He gets the guys playing hard. But once that is done, now you have to move on to the next person. You have to get the person to take that next step.
Wow.
Interesting.
That's a good
Who would be your pick?
Yeah, that's the thing. Yeah, who did you bring in? Right?
We don't know who the right man for that job is, but we also know that they will never hire him. This is the same man who built the legendary Warriors that made them the team that they are. And this is the same man who, Bouk, led the Johnnies years ago to a Big East title. We all know the next coach should be Mark Jackson.
Yeah, but will they have the guts to do something like that? Probably not.
I don't know.
Yeah,
for some reason, when Mark Jackson was fired by the Warriors, that he has not even been mentioned as a finalist anywhere. I mean, he's actually applied for positions and interviewed, but he's never gotten as a finalist on anything. And I wonder why. I mean, there's been some rumors that he may be a little bit too religious for the players.
Yeah, absolutely. That's been out there, right? He's a preacher man, right? He's a preacher man.
I've heard that as well. And it's funny. You know, and a lot of people don't know, you know, when we watch Steph play and we see Steph do the little shimmy, that's his homage to Mark Jackson.
That is Mark Jackson's.
Mark used to do that too.
Yes, he did.
He used a little shoulder shake, you know, a little shimmy when he was getting hot. So, you know, listen, I agree, Paul. I've heard the same thing regarding that, but if that's what it is, I think that's a little crazy.
No.
You know, he gets the job done. He gets it done.
And then we're missing him in the booth, right? Because that kind of crazy thing where.
Please.
I mean, you got to watch the NBA games on mute these days, guys. I'm sorry, it's a rough take to when you're watching the ESPN game.
Not having Jeff Van Gundy and Mark Jackson, and you have just cackling going on. What drives me crazy is poor Mike Breen is like trying to be professional, and then when he's just trying to blend in everyone, but it's like I don't know, maybe they're paying them by the word, that they can never shut up in these games.
Well, they have two people, right?
I know, but they never shut up.
But I know Van Gundy and Jackson could pull it off a lot better, but that's the problem with the 3-person booth where it's so it's Jefferson, Richard Jefferson, Doris Burke. Is that who?
Yeah.
That's basically it, right?
Yeah.
And Jefferson loves to hear himself talk, right?
Oh,
so
yeah.
it's rough.
Yes, he does. Yes, he does. And you know what? Listen, we got to get him back, like you said. We got to get, Coach Jackson back in some capacity. You know, we need to hear the hand down, man down. We need to hear the mama, there goes that man. Like, we all know where it was, Frank. And definitely, we're better off with him in the sport, for sure.
Well, I'll say, if they do lose to Boston, say Boston right now, the way it looks, right? If they lose badly, it'll be interesting to see. I'm not going to say he's in trouble, but there'll be some talk at least, and then you can hark back to this show, Gamal. So before we got to let you go, we do want to get a little March Madness thought. Are you watching college hoop, or are you just purely more of an NBA guy?
No, we're definitely watching college hoops. When as Bouk mentioned, we were at the game,
right?
And I got to tell you, as soon as the Johnnies won, I turned to him. I said, "Look, we have to be a lock for a number 2 seed, which we got."
Yeah.
What I didn't know was that they would put us in the same group as Florida.
Right.
That is what I did not see coming.
Yeah.
No, it's going to be good. I think the Johnnies can go far.
How far do you think they would go?
What was that?
How far do you think they'll go?
I think they will definitely get to the Elite 8.
Interesting. Okay.
Yeah.
I think so. I think when they come up on what seems to be Florida, I think at that point anything's possible. We have to see what happens. St. John's might be clicking. They might be rolling. I know Florida, that team is like Noah's Ark. Good Lord, they have 2 of everything on that team. It's incredible. It really is. If you haven't seen Florida play, when you watch them play, you're like, this could be considered unfair. But I think that there's 2 things that are in the Johnny's favor. One, we play in the Big East. And it is known, and that is, I think, one thing that hasn't changed over the years. Big East brand of basketball is a very physical brand of basketball. And not everybody is used to that. And the other thing is our defense. Our defense is stifling. Our defense is something, as we saw the other night when we played against Marquette, it just wears on you. And by the second half, a lot of those guys, they're like, all right, we've had enough.
Yeah.
So I think the Johnnies, I think if they come up on Florida, and we're on, I don't think it's impossible.
Well, actually, we were quickly talking about this earlier, and I actually have Maryland knocking out Florida, Gamal, because my view, and this is based on not knocking Florida, it's that everybody is on Florida right now. So I've seen this story before, right before the tournament starts, the team that everybody's on, I'm a little squeamish, so I'm hoping. So I actually had St. John's going to the Final Four, not winning after that. So I actually ended up going with Houston over Auburn. That's actually, which is no big shakes because they're number one seeds. Yeah. But I have to fade Duke because I just can't root for Duke. But I think I went with Alabama as the last team. So I kind of went with like this SEC was the best conference all year, so that's kind of what my thought was. But obviously Florida fits that, so that's what happens. Florida's the only SEC team in the Final Four, and all the other ones lose. So anyway, Gamal, man, thank you so much for calling in. Great talking to you, and hopefully we'll have you on the show in the future again.
Of course, guys. Always a pleasure. Thanks for having me, and absolutely, all you guys reach out. I love to be back on. Can't wait.
All right. Thanks,
awesome.
Gamal.
Great talking to you, bud.
All right. Take care, guys. Bye.
Wow, some interesting takes from Gamal, Tom Thibodeau. And then I feel, because this would have been great for us, John, to get the Tobin Anderson story. It's just too right off the presses. So Gamal played for Tobin Anderson when he was a D3 coach. That's right. And anyway, this is such a local niche issue, what happened. But it ties into Pitino and Iona. That's what's so funny about all this stuff. How it ties in. So he'll get back into it, but it is crazy. The expectations. Come on.
Iona's a very small school. It's a very small school.
Their only chance is to win their conference tournament every year. That's how they get in. They've done well in the past. They had Tim Kluse there, who was actually a really good coach, who before Rick Pitino got that job. But anyway, so it'll be interesting to see who they're going to bring in. Who they're going to get, like any big name.
I mean, maybe they have someone in mind.
Maybe, who I'll throw out is the Mastriello, the St. John's assistant, who works for
Mastriello.
Mastriello. Maybe. Now, he had some baggage too, right, at Manhattan or something. Yeah. But he's getting a reprieve now with Pitino. And, of course, if you believe in second chances, let's face it, Pitino has kind of put his baggage aside. So maybe I'll throw him out as a possibility.
But how long of a contract was Anderson?
They signed him for a 5-year deal, John. They fired him after 2 years.
Wow. Well,
hold on.
We have our next caller.
Steve.
Yes, Steve.
Yeah. Hi, Steve. Welcome to the Bouk and Zoobie show.
Thank you.
Third time's a charm. Thanks, Steve. Hey, we have to tell a quick one because I have butchered the call-in process so far. So the third time's a charm, Steve, and we got it done. Thanks for joining.
My pleasure. And I'm glad I didn't get hung in animated suspension there.
Yeah, no, you got it. When you're on with Bouk and Zoobie, you just have to expect the unexpected. This is great. Now, Steve is also another one of our prior guests, John, talking NHL. But, Steve, we're not going to hold you just to the NHL. You can definitely talk whatever you want. So, John, or if you have questions for us, it's kind of open on how you want to go about it.
NHL is what I like to talk about, but if you want to talk, football and that, whatever, I did have a question, though, kind of, if you...
Yeah, sure. Let's start there.
Instead of you throwing at me, I'm going to throw one at you.
Good.
All right, so Ovechkin's going for Gretzky's goal-scoring record, which he'll get this year, probably, if not next year. So, his career's, winding down, just like Sidney Crosby's career, they're coming to an end. You're a GM. They're both 18 years old. You start your team. Who do you pick? Crosby or Ovechkin? Start your team.
Oh, my God. Wow. That is like... I think I would probably go with Crosby, Steve, but, that's like... It's like one of these arguments, again, with like LeBron against Jordan type of things. You're really splitting hairs. That's what I would do. What about yourself? What's your thought?
I agree with you. I would go with Crosby because he makes the players around him a little better than Ovechkin does. So as far as the team goes, that's why I would go with Crosby. Ovechkin is more of a shooter. He needs a center. He doesn't need a center, but, having a center that passes him, where Crosby has the wingers that he can set up to score. He can score also. Ovechkin's got the size and a bigger hitter.
Crosby plays more of a 200 game, but I would go with Crosby also. Just figured they were both there, but careers are winding down. One's going to get a record, and, so I just figured I'd throw that at you.
I always thought, Steve, that Wayne Gretzky's goal-scoring record was like one of these records that would never be broken. I never thought it would happen.
I agree. I mean, when people ask me who's the best hockey player, and I'll tell them statistically, Wayne Gretzky, nobody can touch him. I do believe Bobby Orr being the best hockey player, offensive, defensively, the only defenseman ever to win the Art Ross scoring trophy. So to me, he's the best. Just that everyone has their opinion, right? He's the best hockey player ever, I think. But the best statistical guy ever was Wayne Gretzky. Nobody can touch his stats, which is what I thought. But now that Ovechkin's going to break that goal-scoring record, I mean, that changes it a little bit. But, even if you go by, like, points, right, Gretzky has more assists than anybody has points. Right? So,
that's the record. That's the record that's never going to get broken, right? There's the assist record, I guess.
Right. I mean, I'm with you on that. But if you would ask me, 10 years ago, I would have said no one's going to break this goal record.
Yeah.
But again, records are meant to be broken. The other one that I think is that he's set that's going to be really tough is that 92 goals in a season. I don't believe anyone's ever breaking that.
Yeah,
that's incredible.
That's crazy.
Well, the NHL went through everyone thinks that the modern game is so much more wide open, but there was an era in the NHL where it was like, I guess, right after the Broad Street Bullies, the Flyers kind of died out, right? Maybe there was that 10-year period where there was just tons of scoring, right? There was just a lot of open, and then, when, I guess it was the Devils, right? They, made the left-wing lock defensive style kind of famous, right? When the Devils were winning cups. So, which I think was probably the worst thing that ever happened to hockey, is now it's, right? More defensive style. So, anyway, that's like...
Right.
Yeah, go.
Defense wins, in most sports, right? But the way the Devils had that, trap going, they were putting you to sleep. I mean, the Broad Street Bullies, they had changed the game with, knocking your teeth out and scoring a goal. And then they, came up against Montreal Canadiens, Jacques Lemaire, Guy Lafleur. They got beat 4-0, I believe, in that finals. And then the NHL started to change, right? So it's kind of a copycat league like most leagues are, pretty much, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
And then during Gretzky's era, it was wide open for so long. And then it got a little bit of clutch and grab for a little bit. But then they started, calling those penalties a lot more. But I think the game today is really good. I think the athletes are fantastic. The speed of the game is great. Nations captured everybody's attention, right?
Yeah, you know what I was telling Paul, what's really amazing about Ovechkin is that he has 19 straight years with 30 or more goals. I mean, that's pretty amazing. And 12 years of 40 or more goals. That's a pretty consistent player, a star player.
No, it's tremendous.
It's an amazing, when you look at it, he's, not to say he snuck up on everyone, but still, just the consistency of what he's done. I mean, that may be untouched. Is 19 straight years? Who's going to play 19 years in the NHL now?
It's
crazy.
Yeah, he's just a machine, and he doesn't play. He doesn't avoid contact. A little more now that he's older, but in his earlier years, he didn't avoid contact either. He rarely got hurt. I mean, this year he, had an injury. I think they broke a fibula or something. I don't remember exactly what it was, but he was a bull also, consistent, a bull, and like you said, all those years of 30+ goals is amazing. Amazing.
Well, let's go from greatness to local hockey, where the last time... Yeah, right. So last year when we spoke to you was right before the playoffs started. You had high hopes for Rangers, and they actually pulled through. In the end, they just kind of ran out of gas, right? I mean, they got beat by a better team. And the thing I was talking about at the end of last year, Steve, was like, I thought they were needed to make a dramatic move in the offseason. Mm-hmm. They didn't. And then this year, I mean, they started off great, and then just kind of just has been downhill. And Chris Drury's management style, where he made like an amateur move where it became public that he was shopping players, including Chris Kreider, which kind of just put a bad feel to the team. This is after Goudreau and Trouba's situation. So what do you think about the situation with the Rangers, and where they? I mean, even if they get in, Steve, it's probably an early exit. I mean, what are they going to do with Drury? What's your thoughts?
When you look at it, the way he handled Trouba in the offseason, and, Trouba had a little bit of a say in that, he let no movement clause. I think he was supposed to go to Detroit, and he said no, and that kind of put bad spin on things. And then, Goudreau going to San Jose, they, liked in the locker room, good playoff performers. So you're kind of getting on where guys maybe are thinking, who's next? They don't care. They're just shipping you out, even if you've good service to the team. So it starts there. Dan Kreider's been a lifetime Ranger, talking about, trading him. But the other thing to me, I'm looking at is like, what direction are you headed, right? So you get Miller, JT Miller from Vancouver, who I love as a player. I think he's a great player. It's also, he just turned 32.
Right.
They got young guys like Cooley and Lafreniere. I mean, where's the growth? By the time these guys grow, Panarin, Zibanejad, if they keep Kreider and JT Miller, are going to be on the, retiring end. Now you've got these young kids, but what do you have coming up in the pipeline? Like, the mix of players, to me, just doesn't go together. They trade Hedel, who unfortunately got a concussion the other night. I don't know if you saw that.
Yeah, I did.
Behind.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was a shame. They traded Capo. I wasn't a big fan of his, but again, young. Could he have developed? We traded Miller early too, right? He developed into a pretty good player. But, I think to build, you're shooting for playoffs. I think the owner might have a little bit to do with wanting to get into the playoffs, as everybody says, playoff money. I thought that, to be honest with you, I thought rushing the rebuild is what kind of set them in the position they're in now. I mean, I'm talking to you guys, they don't agree with me, but I think getting a guy like Trouba, getting a guy like Panarin, who's a left wing, and Kreider, who's a left wing, and now you're bringing up Lafreniere, who no room on the left side, you've got to switch him over to right wing. So I think the rebuild was a little rushed, and now you're like, I don't know, it's like you're trying to put the square peg in the round hole now, like trying to fit this guy in or fit that guy in, and it's just not fitting. And then certain nights they look like, a good team, right? They'll play defensively, they'll cover. And other nights they look like they don't even care. The defensemen look like a turnstile. Right. So I maybe I went a little more fun from where your question was, but I just, they got some good young players. They got to develop them. Like, we have trouble developing young players. If you're not developing young players, you're not growing. Right? What are we going to do? Keep trading away young players for vets that are 2-3 years and then retire, or get older free agencies? Didn't we do that before? It didn't work well, right?
Right. Well, I mean, they're going to ride Igor. If they can get in, they have a shot with him. It's interesting. They have been playing a little bit better lately, and my thought with the Miller thing was, this is what we needed last year. Before the playoffs. That's the trade that if we could have pulled off last year, would have been incredibly valuable. Unfortunately, Vancouver was making their own run. It's because I was originally just thinking, with Drury, do you think if they don't make the playoffs, do you think he's going to get canned, or do you think they're going to bring him back?
I would, if I'm the owner, I start fresh. I got rid of Drew, I got rid of the coach, the whole coaching staff, right? Phil Housley was a great player, right? But he doesn't seem to be that good of a defensive coach. His defensemen are out of position a lot. I mean, that, man-to-man defense, and, instead of his zone is kind of tough to play. But I would clean house. You went from President's Trophy to maybe you get in the playoffs. You know what I mean? Like, they won the President's Trophy last year, the best regular season, right?
Sure.
This year they're struggling again. So there's problems somewhere, right? And you got to start at the top. I agree. I would get rid of Drury at this point. He's made some trades. Yeah, every GM has some good moves and some bad moves, moves, right? He's made some good moves, made some bad moves, but it's just not going anywhere with him. That's my feel.
And I think one thing, and I talked about too, this in the beginning of the season, Steve. I don't know what your thoughts on Matt Rempe. My thought was like going into this year, this was a year to develop him throughout the whole year. And it seemed like Lavalette didn't want him playing. They kind of buried him down in the minors. And I got to be honest with you, the last 10, 15 games, I mean, I know he doesn't have like a scoring ability, but he is a positive impact player on the ice. And I think he's actually going to develop into a pretty good player. I just don't think he's a fourth line guy. What do you think about just like his whole season and his, like not developing him? To me, it made a lot of sense to develop him throughout the year.
I agree with what you said. I mean, last year I said he looked like a giraffe on ice, right? All around, all over. This year his skating has improved, his straight line skating has improved, his hustle. You saw it against the Oilers the other day. Was that yesterday?
Last night, yeah. That
breakaway he had, right?
Yeah.
He skated past everybody, right? I think his improvement has been phenomenal.
Right.
But like you said, bury them in the minors. We don't develop these guys. You get a number 1 overall pick in life, and you switch his position, right? Rempe, you want a big body, right? And the guy was working his tail off in the summer, they said, and you're throwing him in the minors. He comes up, you give him a bit of a chance, and he looks really good. I mean, that line with Edstrom and the center, number 39,
Carrick. Yeah, Carrick. Sam Carrick, yeah.
I mean, I thought some nights they were our best line.
Right, yeah. Edstrom getting hurt, that really hurt them. He was playing good with those huge 2 guys. That was a shame. I was sorry to hear him get hurt. Yeah.
And then the center's a tough player, too. I mean, you got 3 pretty big, tough guys there on that line. That's what you want on the fourth line. And I think Rempe can become a third-line player. Yeah, I really believe that he can move up to that third line.
Yeah.
I'm not sure second line, maybe a little more finishing touch for a second-line player, but I believe definitely can be a third-line player.
Yeah, no, just his finishing is definitely considered. But I was really upset because I just thought it was a perfect situation for him to play fourth line from the beginning, giving minutes to guys, like Jimmy Vesey, who they eventually, got rid of. And there was they bringing guys for these 1-year deals, like even with the Riley Smith situation. And it's just, I don't know, it's just, it's, again, with all the teams in New York, right? I mean, it's just the losing is just brutal. And the Rangers, as we always joke on our show, because John and I are, root for all the losers, the Rangers are the ones who've won the last time. I mean, to put it in perspective, and it's been forever.
It's pathetic.
Are the Rangers the last 94 is the last time the New York team won the championship?
That we root for.
That we root for.
The Giants, if you take the Giants and the Yankees out of that equation, that's accurate.
Okay. Oh, all right. Okay.
And I'm sorry, the Devils too. Do we count the Devils, Steve? I don't know if we count the Devils.
We don't count the Devils.
No, we don't count the Devils. Forget the Devils.
I have a question. I have a question for Steve. So, who do you think you favor winning the Stanley Cup this year?
Oh, this year, the West is going to be some dogfight. I mean, I'll start with the East, right? So the East, to me, the top teams would be Florida again, although they're not playing well right now. Kachuk is out. The Caps, how they turned their season around. You want to talk about a GM making a few good moves, right? And good drafting. Unbelievable. The Caps got a big team, a tough team. What you want in the playoffs, they have skill, they have everything. And the other team to watch out for is the Bolts, right? Tampa Bay Lightning. I really like their team. I don't know if they're young enough to get over that hump, but, in the East, I like the Bolts, the Caps in Florida. If Florida is healthy and playing well, I got to give the nod to them coming out of the East, right? Now, the West, I mean, you can go with the Jets, the Oilers, the Avs, the Stars, even the Knights. I mean, any one of those teams. The Jets right now have the best record in the NHL, right? Winnipeg Jets, right? They have the best goalie in the NHL at this point, right? Hellebuck might be a candidate for MVP trophy. they never get over that hump in the playoffs. Kalaboukas doesn't play well in the playoffs usually. They fall the first round. They got offensive talent. They got defense, the goaltending, number one team in the league right now. I mean, the Jets should be, feared, right? But somehow they falter. Oilers, McDavid, Draisaitl. I mean, 1-2 combo. What they did last year, I didn't like their team last year. I didn't like their defense. I didn't like their goaltending. And I thought McDavid put the Oilers on his back after Draisaitl got hurt and just carried them to the finals. Was it 1 or 2 goals from winning the Cup last year?
Yeah.
So you can't count out the Oilers. The Avalanche with McKinnon and adding Nielsen, our old Ranger favorites, Lindgren, right? I mean, Drury, Nexus, Martin Nash's.
Yeah, they got Nash's, right.
Carolina, thanks. I mean, that's another team that can win it. And now you want to move to the Dallas Stars? They just added Mikko Rantanen, along with all those 20-goal scorers that they have, and their defense and goaltending is really good. That's another team that can win it. The Golden Knights looking really good this year also. But now you ask me a question, I can give you 400 teams, but I need to go coming out of the West. I mean, it looks like the Avs and the Stars are going to play each other right off the bat if things hold out. So that's, 2 of the favorites get knocked out. So I'm going to go with one of those 2 teams, honestly. I think with the addition, the Avalanche, I'm going to go Avalanche, Florida.
All right.
And that's if Kachuk comes back and he's not hurt. If Kachuk isn't healthy for the playoffs, then I would go with the Caps coming out of the East.
That's all right. I mean, that's
Habs winning it all.
Okay, so you mentioned quickly before we got to let you go. You mentioned Kachuk, and of course I think of the Four Nations. I wasn't too high in the Four Nations going in. What was your thought about Four Nations? Did you really enjoy it, or what was your thought?
Oh, yeah, even going in, as a guy starts hanging out with, he just kind of been getting into hockey. And he didn't want the season, tell me, I don't want the season broken up with this Four Nations stuff. I'm telling you, you're going to love it. It's going to be great hockey. The third and fourth lines on each team could be first and second lines on any team in the NHL.
Right.
So you've got skill everywhere. The defenseman on, the 3 and 4 defenseman could be a 1 and 2 defenseman on any team, right? So how can you not enjoy that type of hockey? I think it was my thought going in. And then, you had a little bit of political stuff, and, a lot of those, Canadians, no matter political stuff or no political stuff, they play for their country when it comes to hockey.
Yes, they
right?
do.
So
you liked it.
I thought going in would be fantastic,
And it was.
I wasn't disappointed.
And it was, and now that will lead nicely into the Olympics, right, in 26, which because my rip on it was, Steve, that the Russians weren't represented. So Ovechkin couldn't play, and Panarin couldn't play. Right. So to me, it cheapened it a little bit, but I get why it was exciting. So the Olympics I assume Russia will be able to participate in the Olympics, but who knows? So maybe we won't see them.
Yeah.
Anyway. All right, cool.
It would have been interesting.
Yes, sir.
If they would have made like a European team, kind of Eastern European team, and, like Draisaitl didn't get to play from Germany. Right? But, a team, maybe putting a team like that together, not calling it a Russian team, right? But getting an Ovechkin in there or something with Draisaitl. I thought that would have been interesting, But, again,
it's interesting.
Like you said, but the Olympics, if the Russians play, they always have a good team also.
Right.
You know what I mean? So that would be a challenge. Again, in the Olympics, I think America and Canada are going to be battling it out again.
Exactly. Well, hopefully the Americans come out on top next time. Well, anyway, Steve, thank you so much for joining the show. We love having you on. And thanks again.
Gentlemen. Thank you for having me. And next year we'll do this again.
Absolutely. Thanks for calling, man.
You're welcome. Take care.
All right.
Take care.
Bye.
All right, John, man. We have gone through NBA, NHL, everything with Lieutenant Dan. We do have another guest coming, and it will be probably a little more March Madness, a little bit of everything. So what do you think about the first live episode of Bouk and Zoobie? You impressed or what?
I mean, we're hearing all our callers' expertise, former guests. I mean, they're doing fantastic. It's really interesting conversations. And, it's a little bit of a switch from just you and me talking about these. We have other people
Yeah, no, I know. If we could ever pull this off, we'll have to talk to our great producer who put this all together, and we really appreciate his efforts and his company, zzcreates.com. We'll throw that in there for him, promoting his company, so we're going to close it out with our next caller, a good old friend of the show who actually was on so long ago, John, he wasn't even on YouTube. So I guess you could say it's his YouTube debut, but you won't see his beautiful face.
Yeah, that's true.
So we'll see what happens.
That's true. Well, I had a question before he calls in.
Yes.
Would you say that Rick Pitino is the greatest college basketball coach of all time?
That's a great question, right? Because when you get to that level, if we throw John Wooden out, UCLA, right? Because when it comes to college basketball, John Wooden is the mark, right? So he won 11 out of 13 years, but it was such a different sport back then. It was totally different. It really was different. So they paid the players then, but it was a completely different setup. So if you want to just take him out because you want to say he's from a different era, it's still going to be Mike Krzyzewski is going to be the guy from Duke is going to get that. But Pitino now with his 6th team in the tournament, now that's a positive thing, but it's also negative because he has bounced around, and Coach Pitino does have a little baggage for his, when he went to the NBA dream. So it's hard to say he's the best of all time, but as a game coach, currently, he's not going to get out-coached. So I took them to the Final Four. I think they're not getting respected, John.
No, they're not. At all.
Right. If you look at the odds makers for winning the tournament, they're not in that top 5. So you can get them. I think I saw it today 6-1 to win the West. Just win the West. In other words, beat Florida 6-1.
Wow.
And I think the overall to win the national championship was 33-1. To win St. John's.
Wow.
Now, if I'm a betting man, I would bet them to get to the West, right? So you could take that 2 different ways because, if they beat Florida, they maybe take out the best team, so maybe they'll win it. So you might as well bet 33-1 over 6-1. So that kind of counters my argument. But the point is that they are getting a little disrespected. It took them forever to get ranked this year, and then they just shot up. The Big East still is a little down. But when you watch them play, and as Gamal mentioned, the suffocating defense. And that is something can these teams handle, and we'll find out. Hello. You have called in to the Bouk and Zoobie show.
Good evening, guys. How are you?
There he is. Hello. Rich Klorman, who, Rich, like I had just mentioned before you came on, and of course, thanks for joining, was that you were on our show so long ago, you were never on YouTube. So you can tell everybody, all your friends and family, that you are making your YouTube debut.
Big time.
You made the big time. So anyway, John, you remember Rich from the?
I remember Rich. Yeah, we were talking about why there was no 40th anniversary, and we didn't see you in the 40th anniversary. We were looking for you.
Oh, right, yeah. So Rich's claim to fame, for the people who don't know, is that he is part of NFL Films lore, right, Rich? Where when the Jets made the infamous Ken O'Brien pick, the cameras panned onto a few young lads in the crowd, and Rich is famous for being one of those lads. So
with the astonished look and stunned look.
He put his rolled-up program to his head, if I remember right, Rich.
No, I had the clipboard out back then.
You had the clipboard was out.
The clipboard and a lot more hair.
A lot more hair. That is true. I can vouch for that. And then also, as I always joked, even back then, was that Rich was definitely the only buddy in the place who knew who Ken O'Brien was. So, and his friend, if you actually look, you could read lips, he's like asking Rich, like, who is this guy that they picked? So, anyway, Rich, thanks for joining, man. And as with all our guests, you're going to be, you're the cleanup spot, and you're closing today. And we're going to open it up to, because I know you've got so much on your mind, because you literally follow every sport, really do. What do you got top of mind? Anything you want to complain about? If the court is, it's all yours, bud. What do you got?
I don't know. I guess start off with the little NCAA hoops and, get your guys' feel for the tournament and give my observations on what I think is going to happen.
All right. Well, we've been talking a little bit about it, so let's go with your observations, right, John? And then we'll swing in.
Sure.
And I have actually, John has yet to announce his picks. So, Rich, I will tell you mine because I already mentioned it. I have the Final Four. I have Houston, Alabama, Auburn, and St. John's. So that was my Final Four.
Okay.
So what are you thinking?
I'm completely different.
Okay.
I went Michigan.
Wow.
Florida, Duke, and I'll throw you a curveball here. I went with Clemson.
Wow. Okay, there you go.
I figured everyone was down on the ACC, and we'll watch them get two teams in the Final Four.
There you go. All right, that's a good one. And you threw Michigan in there, who we haven't mentioned Michigan, Rich, and we haven't gone too deep into the brackets, but teams that had like mystery seeds, which definitely Michigan being a 5 seed, somehow being behind Purdue and Wisconsin. They just beat Wisconsin in the tournament, Big Ten tournament championship, and they're seeded 5th, and then Wisconsin's 3rd. So that's kind of one of the ones that kind of sticks out to me.
Yeah, and I didn't think Auburn would get to the Final Four. I thought they would get picked off along the way, so that was why I liked Michigan.
Okay. Well, that bracket is. Would you say that's the weakest one, the Auburn bracket? Because I could not find many alternatives there. What do you think?
Yeah, Michigan State. They could be a little bit of a weak 2 seed. You got Iowa State as the 3 seed.
Yeah, they were also hurting, right?
Yeah.
All right. Well,
and Michigan is a good.
Well, that's also the bracket with Louisville as the 8 seed. So.
Correct.
It's funny that he picked Michigan because no one's talking about the Michigan story. I mean, first-year coach.
Yeah, Dusty May.
And I mean, amazing what they did this year.
Yeah, they started off really good, and everyone was on their bandwagon, and then they came back down to earth like most teams usually do.
Well, it was all transfers, right? I mean, like it's everybody. Was anybody on that team last year who's on this team?
No, I don't think so, because the 2 big guys transferred in. Golden came with them from FAU, and Wolf came from Yale.
Yeah, from Yale, right?
Yeah. I think the other guys were transfers too. I can't go off the top of my head.
All right, so did you brave enough to pick the winner, or you can go all the way there? So what do you...
Yeah, I guess I'll probably go with Florida over Duke.
Okay.
Go that way. My 2 upstarts will get knocked off in the semis, and then I don't know. I can't pick Duke, so I'll just go with Florida. I know they're the trendy pick, but they are playing so good of late, and I just thought maybe it's their year.
All right. So do you have any first round specials? This is one thing we have not talked about at all tonight is the old, the double digit seeds. I'll just open it up. I took a couple. Do you have any specialties for those people out there who are going to pick their brackets when it comes to the double digit seeds?
Yeah, I like VCU as the 11th seed over BYU.
Okay, VCU. Do you have anybody winning 2 games who's a double digit? Did you get that brave?
No, I don't think I had anyone going 2 wins with the Sweet 16.
Well, it's funny because I'm looking through and I'm trying to recall exactly what I did, but So these are the guys that I had as double-digit upsets, right? So I had Liberty over Oregon.
Wow.
I actually, Rich, I did McNeese over Clemson, so you should definitely be happy that. You should be happy. And then I had Drake winning 2 games. I think that was the one. I took Drake over Missouri and then to upset Texas Tech. And that was part of my angle for St. John's to get to the Final Four. So that's what I had for double digits.
So you're going against the Big 12 there, huh?
You definitely, I actually went kind of with the SEC was the best conference.
Okay.
But I faded Florida not because I don't think they're good, is because everybody's on, right? So I had Florida getting knocked out by Maryland, which you'll laugh. So anyway, so that's kind of my thought. Do you have any double digits? What do you got?
I actually have Xavier.
Oh, they got to win the playing game. Okay. So,
they'll win the playing game, and I think they'll beat Illinois.
Okay.
I actually think that they'll end up beating Kentucky. I have them going in the 16 against Xavier in Tennessee.
All right, so Xavier is a Sweet 16. All right.
I like Xavier. I think they're a tough team.
Okay.
I also have Vanderbilt basically getting, well, they're not going to get past Alabama, so
I had them winning a game too.
Winning a game, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. VCU is
you with Rich?
Another one.
All right.
And I see them beating Wisconsin.
Okay.
So I have them going a little bit further. On the other side, there really isn't anyone. I mean, what I think is being ignored, and I'm a little surprised that they're being ignored, is Marquette. I think Marquette is a very, very good team. I think that they're going to win at least 2 games.
All right.
Marquette.
Now, John is a little Big East biased, but that's good. You've seen them. That's the thing. You've seen these teams play.
I've seen them all.
Right, because that matters. Because, I'm not going to lie, right? So there's some of these teams, like McNeese State. Like, I'm picking them to have an upset. Have I seen McNeese State play this year? No. So that's always a kiss of death.
I don't think any one of us have seen McNeese. No. Rich, I wanted to ask you.
Flavor, I do have St. John's going to the Elite Eight against Florida, losing to Florida.
Okay.
Okay, I do too. I really hate to say that I think Florida is going to beat them because, to be honest, I haven't seen enough games with Florida. I've seen maybe 2 games with them. I'm not really that impressed with some of the other teams that I saw playing, these so-called top teams.
Okay.
I think that St. John's would beat some of these teams pretty easily with their defense, because a lot of it's, what I've been watching is a lot of run and gun, not getting back on defense. A lot of these teams really don't play defense. I'm surprised. I mean, so many of them that were selected here, and I'm like, St. John's
St. John's is playing, they're kind of mirroring how Connecticut played the past 2 years. They would pull away, like late in the second half. They would go on the run and wear it down, and all of a sudden, it's a double-digit victory, and that's how they're playing now.
I think the only difference that I see is that at least Connecticut knows how to shoot a free throw and actually knows how to shoot 3-pointers. That's going to come back to bite them. I mean, if they keep their game going inside, and listen, St. John scored 60% of their points were made 2-pointers. 60%.
Yeah, right throughout the year.
So stick with that. I mean, we watched the game. We were at, Paul was at several games with me this year, and we're busy screaming the entire game, go inside, go inside. No. I mean, the beginning of against Creighton and even the beginning of Marquette, they're just shooting these outside shots. Why? Just keep driving it in every single time. Every single time. Get the other team in foul trouble. But they really have to learn how to make these foul shots. I mean, it's going to come back to bite. I've been saying it all year. I'm just deathly afraid of them, the game being on the line and them missing foul shots. Especially the one-on-ones.
Yeah. All right, Rich, so you got any other general thoughts? We haven't talked about the women's at all, so since you watch the women's, are you on this Connecticut bandwagon? Like, there's no way they're not going to win? What's your thoughts?
No. Yeah? Well, Connecticut, I didn't think they could beat a better team, but when they went down to South Carolina
and they smoked them
ago and beat the crap out of them,
right?
They turned changed my thoughts on them. I'm like, maybe they can make a run. But they also shot the lights out that night, so I don't know if they play South Carolina again, if they could shoot as well. But they were impressive. It's going to be interesting because they're matched up with USC. I think they could get past them because they lost to them earlier in the year, but I think on the return game they can get to the Final Four. And I believe, I don't have it in front of me, but I believe they're matched up on the same half of the bracket as UCLA.
Okay. So right now, the number one seeds on the woman was UCLA a number one in the end? Did they get as number one seed?
Yeah, they were the number one seed. Yeah.
Oh, and it's South Carolina.
Yeah, they were the overall number one seed.
Okay.
It was UCLA and USC in the same half, and then it was South Carolina and Texas.
Gotcha.
In the other half.
All right. Well, we had to throw the women's in, I guess, and because there's obviously last year, right? The women's Final Four outdrew the men's Final Four.
Yeah.
Now that should revert to the norm. Is that what you're expecting?
Yeah, that was just Caitlin Clark and undefeated South Carolina, and Connecticut was there too. So
you don't
that's
expect
going to be a little different this year.
All right. Well, we as we know, we have a limited time, so I definitely want you to throw out some more stuff, Rich. What else you want to? What's on your mind, man? What are you upset about? What do you want to get out there?
Should we talk about the Mets?
Yeah, a little Mets. There you go.
Yeah, I'm pretty confident going into the season. I think they're going to have a good season. 90+ wins, probably now I'll go low to mid, maybe so 93, 94 in that range, I would think. Lineup looks good. The starting pitching's a little worried with guys getting hurt. But they have a little bit of depth there. Bullpen's going to be good. So,
who do you think? Who's your surprise? Who do you think is going to do well that comes out of the blue? We shouldn't say come out of the blue. That's on the roster that you think is actually going to have a very good year.
Well, I think McNeil's going to have a bounce back year. I think he's going to have a good year
if he could get in a lineup and not be hurt with the obliques.
Yeah, I know. Inevitable, the minor injuries with the baseball players. Nimmo kind of worries me with the feet, with the injuries there. I don't know. I think Soto will have a real good year. Maybe Syria could be a surprise if he plays a lot with his power numbers.
Yes. Yeah, he's a tremendous defensive outfielder, and he's actually shown some power in spring training. I mean, when he connects, it's going out with velocity. I mean, he hits it with authority. That guy. The only thing is, will they be able to cut down on his strikeouts? Because he strikes out. I believe it was 1 out of every 3 times.
Yeah, boy.
Yeah. So.
Well, you know how I love my under-overs, and I know, John, we probably would normally wait for this, and you can change your pick, but I just want to give the numbers out quickly, Rich, and I know you love this stuff.
And by the way, Rich, yes. Paul will not tell you that I was right on the Yankees and the Mets last year.
Right, you took
I think I was too on those picks.
Yes, you were. You did. Yeah. You were brave enough to go in the comments section. So I don't know if this is the official. So I don't know if we want to make it official, but this is the numbers. I don't know if you guys have even looked at this, right?
No, I don't know what they are.
Okay. All right. So I'm going to, because there's various books. So the Mets, okay, let's put it this way. You put a number on it, and we'll see how you guys do. So under, over, what do you think Vegas? Rich, you go first. What do you think?
The Mets?
Yeah, the Mets.
I'll say 92.
92?
And a half.
92 and a half, John?
I'll say 93.
It's Okay, so you guys are definitely going over because it's 90.5.
Wow.
Okay. All right. Now the Yankees.
I will take over.
The Mets, right?
Yeah, 100%.
Okay. Yeah, me too. I mean, the Mets, if they don't win 90-plus games this year.
All right. And you know it's funny because I'll give you... So Atlanta, now again, this is multiple books. 92 or 93.5. There's a couple of numbers. For Atlanta...
Wow.
Philly is 90.5, 91.5. They're both those numbers.
Interesting.
The Dodgers. All right, guys, throw it out there. Dodgers under over. What do you think it is?
I mean, they win 100 games every year, it seems like. It's got to be like 98.
I'm going to say 103.
103.5, 104.5. Somebody else.
Wow.
So that is just. This is the whole Major League Baseball, guys. The Dodgers are plus 10 in the under-over. Over Atlanta's the second choice.
Wow.
This is both the American League.
That's a lot.
This is crazy. I don't know.
Well, let's do the Yankees. Let's see.
Yeah. Well, okay.
Let's try the Yankees.
Okay. So you want to put a number on them? Or put a number on them.
Okay. Well, when did they do this?
No, this is up to date as far as I know.
It's post all the injuries.
Yeah, definitely, yes.
91.
Okay, Rich, what do you think for the Yanks?
I'll go a little lower. I'll say 89.
89.5.
Yeah.
And guess what? That's the number one. That is number. I am not kidding you. That is number one. I almost like, is this insane? You have to see this. Mm-hmm. The Yankees are number one. Then Houston's 87.5. Baltimore's 88 or 87.5. Boston's 86.5. Arizona's 86. Oh, that's obviously National League. I mean, this is predicting that only one team is like close to 90 wins in the American League.
I think the surprise this year that no one's really paying attention. Boston has made some very, very good moves.
They're 86.5.
They're going to make the playoffs now, and they may challenge the Yankees in the East now because they have the pitching. They added pitching. They added Bregman. Pretty solid lineup. They may be a surprise. People haven't been mentioning the Red Sox.
Well, I'll tell you, it's amazing, right, Rich? How the American League can be considered like such a everybody's the same. That's crazy.
Yeah.
Well, it's a weak league.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, Rich, I've been saying to Paul, just the American League is just very, very weak. I mean, if you look at the National League, you have a bunch of killer teams there. I mean, they're just so loaded, the National League. I don't know what, I mean, if you're looking at, this is again, preseason prediction, who do you see in the World Series?
Well, it's tough to go against the Dodgers. I would say the Dodgers and the American League. That could be anyone. I would have bet against the Yankees even with Cole. Although I just don't think they would have gotten back there. I'll go Orioles. How's that? 1966 all over again. Dodgers and Orioles.
Okay. The only difference is 1966. If you remember, the Orioles had Palmer, McNally, Cuellar.
Yeah.
I mean, that was like the pitching staff of pitching staffs.
Yeah.
Well, I should say the Dodgers had Koufax and Drysdale.
Drysdale, yeah.
I mean, they were pretty loaded too.
Hey, it's a little before our time here, but we remember people telling us about this stuff, right?
Yeah.
All right, Rich. So you went baseball. You got any questions for Bouk, or you want to go over to another sport before we close it for the night?
I guess we might as well touch on the Jets.
All right.
Do we have to?
Yeah. Well, they're under the radar signings.
Oh my God! Is this like John had mentioned Noddy earlier, but barely played last year. I'm telling these guys, Rich, they're signing guys who are like borderline making the roster. This is not like there's no impact player at all.
I know. Well, like we had spoken off the air about it. At least they'll start to get some compensatory picks. These guys will, letting the other guys walk, and they're already figuring out that they're going to get a 4th round pick for Hassan Reddick.
Really?
I read that.
Oh yeah, that's funny. Nobody's talking about that, but that's since the Jets aren't signing anybody, they can be eligible for compensatory picks. I had mentioned this to you, Rich, which is like the NFL with their bizarre, with their rules with the minority coaches, where the Jets have now hired their 3rd black head coach.
Yeah.
And guess how many compensatory picks the Jets have gotten for hiring 3 black head coaches? 0. So they have this kooky thing where if you poach a black coach, that the team that gets poached gets the pick, not the team that hires them.
Wow.
Yeah. So make that make sense. Wow. That's how many comp picks the Jets have gotten for doing what they've done for the black head coaches.
Wow.
and they get 2 picks. They should at least split it if they're going to do it that way. Each team should get a pick.
You would think so, right? I mean, isn't it important to hire the minority coach as well as provide it? So the NFL does a lot of weird things. So Rich and I obviously talk about the Jets all the time. So Rich, I don't even want to think what the under/over is, but I think you're thinking what I'm thinking is that this is between a 4 and 7 win team as we speak pre-draft. Obviously subject to change.
I would say more 5 or 6 again, but you're right. They're right in that range. And it seems like all they want to do this offseason, they want to settle on the quarterback position pretty quick and then just go low budget the rest of the way, which is fine. It's just gonna stink for the next few years.
Well, what else is new? Steak. We've stunk for many years. Well, what's another 3?
Exactly.
Yeah. And I guess I'm saying it like I think like they're automatically going to be good. And
yeah, right.
That they're actually building towards something.
I'm sure every Jet fan, right, Rich, would sign for being a quality team in 3 years if they actually would do it. Which of course they have shown the incapable of having any sustained success, which we've talked about previously. The record, it says what it is. And I guess, Rich, quick, we got to talk a little Aaron Rodgers. I guess he hasn't signed as of this moment. We're talking on St. Patrick's Day, Monday. Do you have a prediction where he ends up?
I think he's going to go to Pittsburgh. It's still in the best situation.
Well, yeah, I'm surprised.
All right, well.
I was saying, I think it was last week, I don't know if Tomlin would do something like that. It would be just so out of character for him to take a malcontent like him. Listen.
We don't know. We'll find out.
I could be wrong. I mean, Brett Favre.
I think it was so unsettled last year that he would pull him in this year. But then again, he provides a little drama. He could be a little unsettled himself.
I mean, Brett Favre wants him to go to the Vikings. Brett Favre is advising him to go to the Vikings.
Well, I think it's the convincing the other side. So I'm almost leaning a little bit. I think he may retire now. I'm starting to get this feeling that there's not as much interest on the other side as a backup. 100%. Like I think Minnesota in a heartbeat would bring him in if he was willing to actually mentor McCarthy and maybe play. As a pure starter, I think, like Richie said, Pittsburgh makes the most sense to give him a starting spot. The Giants, I always thought that was made up, so I just think that's just not true. So anyway, Rich, I'm going to give you one last chance to bring up another subject before we close this unbelievable live show that we're doing. So you have any last subjects you want to throw out there?
I did notice, because me and you always talk about with the NCAA and the times and all of that. I did notice the schedule of the times, they pushed it back a whole 5 minutes. Usually like the game started 7:10, they would say the second game would start at 9:40.
Right.
Now it's actually 9:45. because you know how games are, and it really should be like 9:55, just because these games go so long. And NCAA tournament games normally before this year went 2 hours and 15 minutes, and then you throw on the delays this year, and all games are going to be like close to 2.5 hours.
Well, there was a Paul Zubulake comment to me, a text to me, that when I told him about the 9:45 start, he says, "No, make that a 10:05 start."
Yeah, no, he's absolutely right. They never start on time, these games.
Rich,
God forbid the first game goes into overtime.
It's so funny because St. John's, John did text me, he's like, the game's going to start at 9:45, and I'm like laughing. I go, John, wait till you see during the first game when they flash up when the game's actually starting, and it's going to be 10:05 or something. And that is coming, folks. So get ready for some late nights. March Madness starting in the Dayton playing game on Tuesday. The real games Thursday, Friday, Saturday, and Sunday. It's nonstop. The wives are going to be throwing the men out of the house after this weekend. So can't wait. Rich, so much thanks for calling in, being our last caller.
Anytime, guys.
And it's great to hear from you again.
Thanks, Rich.
And we'll talk to you soon, bro.
Okay, take care, guys.
All right, thank you.
Yeah, bye.
Thank you.
Bye.
All right, John, I think we got to close it. You know, we've been on for how many hours now?
Yeah,
so
well, and
who do you got to thank?
I'm going to thank our producer, Zach Zubulake, for doing such a fantastic job. To our loyal listeners and viewers, again, keep the feedback coming. We also would like to thank our community partners, Ronald McDonald House, Kids in Seats, and the Jackie Robinson Foundation. See you next week, and thanks for tuning in.